All right, so I'm back with Mr. Visti Larsen. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
One of the questions that I wanted to talk to you about is specifically within the lens of Gochara or transit analysis. Parashara talks about this Ashtakavarga business, and where sign strengths are calculated based on natal placements and scores are assigned. And it's even hinted that if you don't know anything about Jyotish, just learn Ashtakavarga and you can do enough with that. But again, this is an area where we look at transits, and even you'll see this a lot with a lot of astrologers. They'll talk about transits, Saturn's changing signs, Jupiter's changing signs, and how this is going to affect based on house placement from the Lagna. But this is a key component, Ashtakavarga, that is often missed, and there's very little understanding. And I'm wondering, while I have you here, if you could perhaps drop some juicy tidbits that we can learn a little bit about Ashtakavarga, I would really appreciate
My
it. And I'm
pleasure.
sure a lot of my listeners would too.
My pleasure. And it's because you mentioned transits. Immediately I sit back and say, okay, just hold on Ashtakavarga a minute. I have to jump in here. All right? You said transits. And I will say, do you know how often I use transits? I barely use transit. I have to. I must on occasion. But I barely use it. And there is a reason for that. It's not my opinion. Think of it this way. Here's a person. They are born. They have a set karma that's there from birth. And that karma from birth till death should be what they go through, right? Yes? So why would it not be enough for us to simply have the Dasha, which is integral to the person's chart, independent of the world of us outside them? You see, outside. Why do they need something outside which is not integral to their chart to decide what's happening to them? What am I trying to say? Ashtakavarga is the wind blowing around you. I mean, not Ashtakavarga. I correct myself. Gochara is the wind blowing around you. Something is happening in the sky. Is it related directly to your karmas? Why is an event happening outside so important for your karmas that are happening in your chart, which are supposed to be there from birth? What happened? What changed? Why, since birth, you had that karma. Now you're telling me I need some other factor outside to decide what's going on with your karma? And somebody will try to say, oh, but Visti, that's because these planets are being triggered. Your karmas are being triggered by these planets outside. I say, but why don't you rely on dashas for that? Why do you need transits? Because the problem with transits, the slowest planet we have takes 30 years to go around. So every 30 years, he will be Saturn in the same place. So what are we doing with this information? Are we going to say that every 30 years life is the same? No. Somebody will say, no, Visti, the other planets are also transiting at the same time. So, okay, I have 9, 7, 8 levers to play with to say what my life is at any given time. Now tell me if that's useful. Because I'm not going to read all the planets transit at the same time to predict events. Also, right? That I also won't do. Too complicated. What happened? Transits now become even more complicated than reading the birth chart. Right? So, why are we reading transits? There is a statement given in Jataka Parijata. It says, okay, here I'm now teaching Pinda Ayush. Pinda Ayush. What is Pinda Ayush? Pinda Ayush is a calculation based on the birth chart to tell you your longevity. You take a bunch of numbers collected together based on the planetary placements, and based on that, you get a Pinda. That Pinda tells you how many years you will live. And then it goes on to tell you, you can also do Amsha Ayur calculation, so tool methods. And then there is one more, I forget, is it called Rashmi Ayur? Because in Jataka Parijata, it lists after that a few more. Okay? There are 3 main ones. Pinda, Amsha, I think the last one is Rashmi, and correct me if I'm wrong. All right? And then Jataka Parijata says, okay, and there's some more. There's Ashtakavarga Ayur, there's this Ayur, there's that Ayur, and it goes on. I think it lists about 8 or 9. And it states these longevity calculations will work for the person who is living a good, they use the term dharmic, all right, proper life, taking care of themselves, not putting themselves in harm's way, not putting a risk to their health, not eating wrong things or doing wrong things to their body or other people, and performing good karmas. And if you do not fulfill this, you are susceptible to what is called apamrityu, premature death. Oh, wait a minute. So you can have a longevity calculated from birth, which is supposed to last till, let's say, 86, assume. 82, assume. But because you did some bad karma and you had maybe how many planets to give you contribute that longevity, maybe you had 7 or 8 or 9, depending on the calculation used. Let's say 7, body planets. So those 7 planets are working in order from birth till death, and if you fulfill the good karmas, then they will all give you longevity. You mess up, one of them will say, I'm not supporting you, and boom, you just shift your whole length of longevity down by the amount of years that one planet was supposed to contribute. So it's like a dasha now, right? Did you climb all the steps of the ladder? Did you mess up with one graha, so that graha says, I'm sorry, I'm not contributing anyway, so now you die a bit earlier? Okay? And so you could argue that from that nitya, what I call this calculation that's set from birth. And then it says you can have apamrityu, and this is when the tradition comes in and says, oh, that calculation that Parashara and Jataka Parijata gave is called nitya. It means eternal, can always be used, is always applied. It can also mean fixed. It's there and it won't change. There is something called anitya, which is not fixed. Not fixed longevity. What does it mean, not fixed longevity? You can die anytime, anytime, anytime. You went on that drinking bend on a pub crawl in town. You slipped on the sidewalk, forget nitya ayush. Done. You're already. Okay? What does that mean? Bad transit. The transit was deciding, not the fixed calculation. So when you say, Visti, what about transits? I said, you needed transits? Are you okay? Is everything all right? You taking some medication? You're eating too much food? You need to fast a bit? You need to lose weight? Exercise a bit? You need to have a proper diet? You need medication? Oh, transits. Oh, okay, we're in trouble now. Okay, now you get it. It is like some form of apamrityu. You're not following your chart anymore. You're following that the wind is blowing outside and you didn't wear the proper jacket. Because if you treated yourself properly, you would wear that proper jacket. If you treated yourself properly, you would probably not go on a drinking bend in town for that whatever pub crawl. That's why we are using transit. So before we enter Ashtakavarga and transits, we need to know this part. Okay? Because Ashtakavarga is not only for transits. It's also for dasha. Some people say, what? How? What? Visti, one more time. Also dashas? Yeah, it works brilliantly for dashas. I use it all the time. It's so fun. Okay? I can predict all sorts of things using Ashtakavarga about the birth chart. Forget timing events, because it's brilliant for that. But as soon as you say transits, I say, why are you using it? What's wrong? Are you okay? Saturn transit is causing somebody's longevity to be impaired. Ooh, we have a problem, right? That's what's going on with transits. Okay? You'll have a great dasha. Saturn transits Kantak Shani. You didn't protect yourself from him properly. You didn't, take care of your own self. You ate something wrong, drank something wrong. Forget the dashas. You look at the transit. Done. That's what's going on. Interesting, right? That first view. Why are we using transits?
It is. I mean, these are things that in my own consultations, I've always underemphasized transits, just simply because we have enough to look at with the dashas. But
Sure.
what you're saying is actually shifting my lens a little bit.
So it implies that the dasha that you are running could not carry you to the end of its dasha and let the next dasha take over. You're running a dasha, it's not able to carry you. It's like, oh, I'm croaking early. The dasha says, I give up. Okay? So that's now what I'm going to dwell on now is very integral to Ashtakavarga. This concept that the dasha is not able to carry you. All right? That the transit had to impair you or affect you, positive, negative. Okay? So when does this happen practically? When do we need to be so attentive? So this gets confusing when you learn dasha at first, but it gets easy when I put this across in this way. When a person is running a dasha, a mahadasha, which is poorly placed from Lagna, then that is karma. That's a problem with karma because it's based on your Lagna. Okay. But when an antadasha happens, which is poorly placed from the Lagna, that is also karma. Or well placed, that's also karma. But when it is poorly placed from the Mahadasha, that is dasha problem, not karma problem. Okay? And you run the risk that now transit is taking over. There's a risk. So if you have, let's say, Parashara says, the antadasha of a planet in the 2nd or 7th from the Mahadasha. So you could be running Sun Mahadasha and you're running Moon Antadasha, and Moon is in 2nd from Sun or in 7th from Sun. Then Parashara will say, oh, that is Maraka Dasha. But it's more appropriately Dasha Maraka. The Dasha is having Maraka. You are not having Maraka. The Dasha is having Maraka. The Dasha is not able to carry you. During that time, recite Mrityunjaya. Mrityunjaya. Why do you need to recite Mrityunjaya? You're about to make a big blunder. You need to keep yourself out of harm's way. And then the transit gets its way, gets its say. So when do I be careful of transits? When I see, oh, Mahadasha, Antadasha, this is happening, look at transit. If the Antadasha is in 2nd or 7th from the Mahadasha, you are in trouble. If it's in 6th, 8th, or 12th from the Mahadasha, you are getting scared. You're running scared. Bhiti Dasha. In both cases, you need a remedy for somebody who will remove the Maraka and will remove the fear. So either you worship Shiva in the form of Mrityunjaya, or you worship Shiva when he's removing fear. Abhaya Mudra. Abhaya is abhiti, removing bhiti. Okay? So if it's 6th, 8th, 12th, you should look at which form of Shiva is this. Normally this is Om Namah Shivaya. That's when he has Abhaya Mudra. 6th, 8th, 12th. Abhaya Mudra is Om Namah Shivaya. Otherwise, if it's 2-7, then you need the one who's pouring Amrita on your head. That is Mrityunjaya. Okay? Like that we can differentiate. Then somebody will ask me which form of Mrityunjaya. Well, all of them he's doing good for you. So why not any? Best is the Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Moksha Mamritat. Okay? Notice that moksha, not mokshiya. That's tradition. So there you go, Joey. That's just starting. Transits. Why are we using transits? Okay? So Ashtakavarga, let's get into that. When I first learned Ashtakavarga, I was wondering. When I say when learning means I was reading about Ashtaka, I was wondering. I said, this is very elaborate calculation system. And then Parashara ends off saying, when he teaches this, that if you learn this, then you will be able to make heads and tails out of the chart, which otherwise might be difficult. This is a statement. This is the word he uses. He doesn't say you can do without the rest of Jyotish. He says if you know this, then you will understand the dynamics of the chart better. You won't be guessing as much. You won't have to weigh as much. And but then when you learn how to weigh, then you escape this problem. In the tradition, we pay a lot of attention to learning how to weigh the chart. You learn how to weigh. Yes, this chart is a more wealthy or more poor chart, or this is a more successful or less successful chart. This one has more health problems. This has less health problems. You learn how to weigh. It takes time, admittedly. It really takes a lot of thinking and thought into it. So Ashtakavarga gives us a sort of shortcut, is the idea. But even then, the shortcuts given in the major classics do not suffice if you don't understand what you're weighing. Sincerely, Ashtakavarga cannot replace common chart analysis sense. Common sense chart analysis, right? Yeah, I should, terms and all. Common sense, yeah. Okay, we'll stick to common sense chart analysis. It fits better on the tongue. All right? So that's you cannot replace it. So for example, there's a statement given by Parashara. When you read Father reads 9th from the sun. Yeah, okay. We know in general chart analysis to read 9th from the sun. Is that satisfying for you to just know you should read 9th from the sun for Father? Because you have learned Jyotish now. And you said, but what about 9th from Lagna? And I can also see 9th from Moon. And maybe I've learned enough Jaimini to say, sometimes I need 9th from Venus. Or maybe I need 9th from Saturn. Somebody here listening to this for the first time will probably, have that emoji where their head is exploding, right? What did Visti say? Father is seen from all of these places. It depends on what I'm seeing. Okay? If I am going to speak about whether my father is spending time in my life, I need 9th from the sun. Okay? But if I'm going to see how my father raises me, it depends on whether I'm night birth or day birth, and then I'll see 9th from sun for day and 9th from Saturn for night. How the father raises me. And then the father's physical body is based on whether the father is responsible for giving me my soul or just contributing the seed that made me in the womb. So then it depends, is Sun strong or Venus strong? And I see 9th from Sun or 9th from Venus to see the physical body of my father, to see how long my father will live. Goodness. Now do Ashtakavarga. Right? Now I will read which Ashtakavarga. Parashara says Surya Ashtakavargas for father, but I will use Surya Ashtakavarga in 9th from sun, or 9th from Venus, or 9th from moon, or 9th from Saturn, or we said sun already, right? What about 9th from Lagna? This flexibility is lacking in study of Ashtakavarga. Nowadays, there is this paradigm, and maybe it's dissipating a bit, that when you read Ashtakavarga, you see Sun's Ashtakavarga for sun matters, Moon's Ashtakavarga for moon matters, Mars Ashtakavarga for Mars matters. Fair, that's correct, but don't be too rigid, because it's Sun's Ashtakavarga for all father matters. Okay? All father matters, you need Sun's Ashtakavarga. And then the next step, then they say yes, and all Mars transits should be measured vis-a-vis Mars's Ashtakavarga. And then I say, so if I have to read the future of my mother, I will use Moon's transit for Moon's Ashtakavarga and say what? That my mother will be sick every once a month, every 27 days she's sick again, and every 27 days she's healthy, and every 27 days she gets a new job, and every 27 days there's something to her mom, and to another 27 days to her dad, and to her kid, and to her siblings. And then you just realize when you learn that, you take that book which taught you that, and you do this and say, I don't know Ashtakavarga. Because Parashara doesn't say that. There are some books which say, use Moon's Ashtakavarga for Moon's transit. Sure, don't disagree entirely. So let's try this. Okay, let's try this. Because we're dealing with transits right now, so we're going to lay a bit into this topic. Chandra Kalanadi, Chandra Kalan, Deva Keralam, also popularly known. You should read the Sun's Ashtakavarga to measure the auspicious months and the auspicious years during which events can happen. Visti is sitting there reading that shloka and says, what a beautiful shloka. This is a beautiful shloka. Because it said Vatsara, which means years, and it said Masa, which means months. And then please tell me how I'm going to measure the correct year of an event happening using Sun's transit. I can't, right?
No.
If I'm using transit, it talks about Gochara. I am not obviously going to be using that for sun's transit to see the year. Month, no problem. 1 month per sign, life is good. But year, using sun's Ashtakavarga, I have to use Jupiter's transit vis-a-vis sun's Ashtakavarga. Oh, life is good now. Come back to the Jyotish that I know. Okay? Come back to the logic which makes sense now. I will use Jupiter to see the year and Sun for the month and Saturn for every 2.5 years and Moon for the 2.5 days and the Nakshatra for the day. Everything makes sense now. And I will use those levers, those transits vis-a-vis the Ashtakavarga relevant for the topic. Not one Graha, one Ashtakavarga. I'll use the Ashtakavarga as my reference point to know what's happening to that part of life. And then I'll use the transit to see when it is happening in that part of life. Which year, which month, which day. Use Moon Ashtakavarga for all the 8 Ashtakavargas. Moon's transit for all 8 Ashtakavargas. Sun's transit for all 8 Ashtakavargas. Jupiter's transit for all 8, and so on, so on, so on. Okay? Welcome home, Joy. You are in a good place now. Now we will settle the doubts and we will give you the logic which is appropriate. That is why Parashara says, yes, when you are having to predict when father's longevity is a problem, you'll take the sun, you'll take the 9 from him, you'll do some calculations with Sodhya Pindas, you'll find a nakshatra, and when Saturn transits that nakshatra, not sun, when Saturn transits that nakshatra, it's bad for father. What an amazing system that Ashtakavarga can tell us these things. Wow, that's amazing.
Wow.
That is transit and Gochara and Ashtakavarga. But you need to know what you're doing. Now I come back to this issue with transit. Let's come back. Let's thread them together. So the same Deva Keralam. You can hear I've been studying that. It's because if you don't study nadis, it's hard to really catch some of the real secrets. You have the book Parashara in front of you, but you can't read between the lines. You're not really sure what's going on here. Parashara gave something very elaborate, but you're not understanding. There's something here that is not said but is implied. That's because you were supposed to be taught. So you need some rishis to sit and be discussing with each other and showing how they read charts. You get that in nadis. Okay, you get that. So for example, like I gave that example, Sun's Ashtakavarga. In fact, what was the whole reason for mentioning Sun's Ashtakavarga? Why? Sun's Ashtakavarga is really useful for seeing wealth accumulation. Very useful. So the statement was given not to see the months and years of just anything. It was months and years of wealth accumulation. Cool, huh? And also because Sun is Karaka for the Lagna, also health has to be seen. That makes sense. You're saying, Visti, you make sense. I know this. It also says something about problems with government. Yes, Visti, Sun is Karaka for government. I have to see government from here as well. And also for father. Yes, I have to see father from the Sun. Oh, okay, now I get it. Whatever is the Sun, it's Karakatva. I will use every Karakatva associated with it vis-a-vis Sun's Ashtakavarga. Yes. Good. We're on the same page now. Then in another place, several places in fact, it's listed. The same Deva Kerala. From the moon you will read the Sharira of the person, and from the Lagna you will read the Prana. So Sharira means body and Lagna means Sharira means body, Prana means breath and life force. The implication is longevity. Implication. Okay? And then you will say, yeah, Visti, we have Lagna Ashtakavarga. Yeah, that's right. I know that. Moon Ashtakavarga we have. Yes, got it. And then right away you're avoiding that back of your mind thought that says, I will not read my health every 27 days to be the same. Okay, we're not using Moon's transit for Moon Ashtakavarga, we're still in the same place. And imagine you said Lagna Ashtakavarga is used for Lagna transit and we will really be in trouble. Okay? Yes? Not that you can't use it, but you would really be in trouble justifying the Lagna events. Yes? Okay. And so then it states at one point, you should know how many bindus excuse me, it doesn't use the word bindus. You should know the Bina Ashtakavarga. It doesn't say bindus. It's implying that you know the difference between bindus and rekha, but it's, leave that for now. We're looking for positive points, which Parashara calls rekha, by the way. He says rekha is positive, and then after some time people said bindu was positive. That's a later thing. Why? Let's not dwell on. We need to know what's positive, what's negative. So it states that if you know how much strength the Lagna has in matters of points, each contribution it got point-wise is an age. It's an age. And if you know the age contributed to a certain portion of the chart, that age will tell you when a certain event will happen. So you're not necessarily needing the transit anymore, right? Because you know which age an event is happening. Right. Yes? So for some reason, Ashtakavarga is telling you the age of events. One statement. If Jupiter is in a place which has 5 points and is afflicted by 2 malefics, then the 5th age will cause danger to the person's life. 5th year. So that's a peculiar statement, right? It's peculiar. You're wondering. So are we talking, then you have to start calculating, are we talking the contribution of all the 8 Ashtakavargas? Then it's rare that a sign has 5 points. This must be, no, it must be only from 0 to 8 points. Now we're talking, right? And then you have to ask, well, then what happens after age 8? Why are we only using until age 8? Because there's only max 8 points that can be contributed in a singular individual Ashtakavarga. Let's say you take Jupiter's Ashtakavarga and you see Jupiter's sign and you see there are 5 points there. It can be maximum 8 in a sign. And then you're wondering what happens after age 8. Right? So there's a lot of stuff we don't understand about Ashtakavarga. And also that a sign can maximum get some 60 points. 64, I think it is. Maximum 64. 8 times 8, 64. Maximum is 64 for a sign. What happens after age 64? Why aren't we talking about that? Right? Oh no, we can add points. So 64 plus another 64 on another sign, we'll get 128. Not unfair. Why are you adding that? What is the reason for that? Really, when we talk Ashtakavarga, we have to appreciate these questions. Okay? Why is 8 the maximum in Bina Ashtakavarga? That's the length of Balarishta, beyond which you are no longer experiencing Balarishta. Okay? That number 8 is therefore important.
Correct.
Okay. So this is something to do with the contributions from father is the last 4 of those years, from 4 to 8, and mother's from 0 to 4. Father and mother are giving you some blessing. And that's 8 years. After that, it's up to you. From 8 to 12, you better listen to your parents. They had told you something after 8. If you don't listen, you're in trouble yourself. You have been potty trained. You've done everything. You learn how to speak, who not to talk to. You pray that, you'll have good karmas from 8 to 12. But before that, it's mom and dad. They're to blame until 8. Okay? And then we know Ashtakavargas until 8. Oh, Ashtakavarga is the blessing of the mother and father. So I was taught, number 1, if you understand the entire Shakti Path of worshipping Shakti, then you understand Ashtakavarga. That's how I was taught Ashtakavarga. You cannot just assume that you're just reading points. You have to understand the entire Shakti Path, then you understand Ashtakavarga. That's Ashtakavarga for you. Very deep system. Not an easy system. It's complicated. So you still need a very in-depth understanding of Jyotish to even appreciate Ashtakavarga. Okay? It's not so simple to just use it without really reading the chart. Okay. Little bit more. Then it says, moon is for the body, Lagna is for the prana. Then it goes on to say, then use the Chandra Ashtakavarga to see the dashas when the body is in a good place or not. And then it says, use Lagna Lord's Ashtakavarga to see how the prana is. Wait, what happened here? This is not normal. This is, we were not, we were spoon fed Lagna Ashtakavarga, Moon Ashtakavarga, Sun Ashtakavarga. Now you're talking about lordships, Lagna Lord. And even the translators missed this. Each time Lagnesha Ashtakavarga became Lagna Ashtakavarga. Lagna Adipati Ashtakavarga became Lagna Ashtakavarga. They just missed it in translation. Oh no, we're talking Lagna Ashtakavarga. Lagnapati means Lagna Lord. Lagnesha means Lagna Lord. Did they make a mistake? No, there is a reason why you can do Lagna instead of Lagnesha. But it's a very important clue to what's going on in the chart. Lagna is what you were born with. It is the prana that is in your body. But the Lagna Lord, Ashtakavarga, is an actual graha which is acting and interacting with society, and as it interacts, it's using its intelligence. It got a bunch of intelligence from the Lagna, but it's applying it from the Lagna Lord. And you hope it's been applied correctly so you don't end up in that gutter after that heavy drinking that Friday, Saturday night, whatnot. Because the Lagna Lord was deciding where you went, where you used your brain, what you accepted and what you didn't. And so the Shastra is trying to tell you, look, if it's a Lagna Lord problem, it's wrong application of intelligence, and it is risking to cause you premature death. Apamrityu. The hint comes back. Ow! It is the Lagna Lord which is acting in this way. The Lagna Lord getting in trouble in this way. So, Lagna Lord is a graha. What's your Lagna? I forget.
Simha.
Surya is your Lagna Lord. So, your Surya Ashtakavarga will now tell me about your prana and how you're using your prana and intelligence in the right way. And dashas which are having bad bindus, rekha, points, basis Surya Ashtakavarga are also implying when your intelligence is not applied properly. Which dashas is your intelligence not moving properly? Okay? So if you have a place which has 3 points, 3 rekha in Surya Ashtakavarga, you say, oh, I have to be careful if during the dasha when that of the planet placed in that sign or loading that sign. Now you get it?
Right.
I have Scorpio Lagna. There are 2 lords, Ketu and Mars. Ketu doesn't have Ashtakavarga. Use Mars Ashtakavarga. Okay? I will see Mars Ashtakavarga. Okay, in Mars Ashtakavarga, I have a planet in Scorpio, or in Libra, I also have 2 planets. So in Mars Ashtakavarga, see Libra, and when I run the dashas of those 2 planets, I have Jupiter there, Mercury. When I run Jupiter, Mercury, Dasha, Antadasha, I will know, basis the points in Libra, how they're doing good or bad for my intelligence and my usage of my intelligence.
Okay. Wow. This completely redefines what I know about Ashtakavarga. And
now we're doing Jyotish.
Yeah.
This is Jyotish. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Fascinating. Thank you very much for that.
My pleasure.